Are you ready for a little secret? Well, I'll just tell you because I'm kind of excited to discover more about today's social platform. You see, LinkedIn should definitely be the perfect fit for me. After all, the business-to-business clients I often work with hang out there. And people call it the most professional, business-oriented social site. But I'm just not sure I've mastered it even though I think I need to. My peers grab clients from LinkedIn all the time. What is wrong with me? I sure hope Sue-Ann can pull some new and useful tips for LinkedIn out of the depths of that murky mirror today. Let's find out!
Step inside the marketing mirror to uncover marketing secrets, discover gems, tactics, lessons, and campaigns you can use, next gen or fundamentals. Grab the marketing magic to improve your marketing and win more business. Only on 100 TV. Only on 100 TV.
Welcome to the Marketing Mirror with Sue-Ann. We've been talking about social media for marketing and how to find the right platforms to fit your audience while also considering your business goals. In episode 2, Sue-Ann discusses how to leverage organic social media marketing in the current business landscape, and she gives you things to think about for navigating social media channels and platforms to get your best results. Next, she takes on social media myth-busting to remind you that social media marketing centers around your audience and business, so it's important to focus on your business targets and ignore all the outside noise, like politics and divisive social issues around a platform or their ownership. This is your social media management strategy, and that's all that matters. Still, trying to get a feel, a taste, and doing a little background research to learn what you can about the top social platforms and networks to determine if you are a good fit is an important first step to creating an effective plan. Go back for more about Facebook, Pinterest, and Twitter. And for today, go forward by grabbing the Social Marketing Guide with a handy and helpful social profiles checklist. I'll add the link below. Thanks!
I think you're going to be surprised again at some of what I have for you and some of what I've learned. So let's take a look at the statistics, and then I'm going to tell you about some research. I'm also going to introduce you to some new information that you may or may not know about business pages and how you can use those differently now. And you can use those to also leverage your social presence and build your brand identity. Okay, let's jump in. Hello and welcome. I'm Sue-Ann with Right Mix for Business, and this is the Marketing Mirror. And I'm so glad that you're here joining me for yet another dive into the Marketing Mirror to find marketing tips. And we've been concentrating lately on social media marketing specifically and how you can grow your digital footprint using social media marketing to connect with people. So maybe the thought of a professional, all business type social network gives you the heebie-jeebies, perhaps, especially if you are a creative type. But I don't want you to rule out LinkedIn and the platform and the connections you can make there and the opportunities to find new business, and let your creative side show aloud. Of course, as always, we want to evaluate your audience, your business goals, and your personal talents, or your business as a whole, talents where you shine with the type of content that you present, or the preferences for where you want to dive in. So the thing about LinkedIn is it gives you a lot of ways to showcase your talents and your platform and your content and your business. It gives you a lot of ways to do that. We're going to learn a little more about some of those. And I have some unique research that I dug up for you that I think will also give you some new and exciting, maybe different insight into LinkedIn than we've heard. A little bit of a deeper dive because it's based on actual research. So LinkedIn is a pretty hot social channel right now. It really is. People talk about really gaining good results, but it is known as the most business of all the social networking channels. It's also rapidly changing, and if you didn't know, it is owned by Microsoft. I'm not really thrilled with some of the latest best practice jibber jabber that you keep hearing for LinkedIn today and lately, but there's a good, career based emphasis there. So if you're about career, you're looking to hire or be hired, there's a hiring emphasis there. So that may be the social platform for that area. Also, in fact, above all others, LinkedIn is considered to be the main B2B social media platform. So if you're in a B2B market, that may be exactly where you can find your audience and talk with people. So I'm going to give you a few stats to help prove the serious business-like nature of social media on LinkedIn. So what is happening on LinkedIn as far as the data and the stats for who you'll find there? Well, this is a higher educated audience. 56% have college and higher education. 57% are male, which is interesting that it skews male. Also, 70% of users are 49 years and under. So if you have 70% of users at that 49 and under mark, you kind of are skewing to a little bit older audience on LinkedIn than some of the other channels. But I think that actually correlates with it being a highly professional channel with a lot of C-level executives. But the other thing that I like about LinkedIn, besides the professionalism and the B2B capabilities there, the average session for people who visit LinkedIn is 6 minutes, a little over 6 minutes. And so I feel like that's a pretty good time to be actually looking into your content a little bit and not just flashing by like in some of the platforms. Some of the platforms have longevity over the period of a week or whatever for viewing time, but they're really kind of in and out on the views per visit. I think people spend a little bit of time on LinkedIn, which is good. Now, here's what's interesting. There are 30 million companies listed on LinkedIn, and that really kind of pales compared to 200 million that are on Facebook. So this is the business platform, and yet it's kind of dwarfed in terms of how many businesses are actually listed compared to Facebook. One note of warning of beware on LinkedIn is what I call the DM madness, which is the direct messages there. If you make contact with someone and you have a reference to introduce yourself or let them know why you're reaching out to follow them, hey, I just saw a webinar that you did for a company and I loved it and I wanted to make sure I followed you more closely. I hope we can connect. Hey, so and so is my friend and said you're the best person to learn about Facebook ads, so I want to connect. If you have something that you can personally say to connect through a DM and make a little bit of an introduction when you're connecting, that's great. But if you hit that DM just to immediately say, hello, we connected, bye from me, then you're doing it completely wrong. So I'm asking you, don't be that guy. Don't be like, hello, I love you, I want your money, because that's not true. You don't love me, you just want my money if that's the first thing you're saying to me. And this is one of the things that people hate about LinkedIn. There's a lot of spamming, a lot of DMs that are irrelevant, because if I don't know you, I'm not going to do business with you. Most people that are business people understand that. So that spamming people through a DM, an unsolicited DM, is usually bad business. LinkedIn posting is kind of cool because it's about consistent quality over quantity. And I'd say of all the platforms, LinkedIn offers you the ability of being able to post less frequently and still get that bang, more so than any of the other platforms. So in your quest for quality over quantity, you can be more specific and more high quality with what you share on LinkedIn. On Twitter, you might share everything that you create, everything that you write, everything that you create. But on LinkedIn, you might be a little bit more specific or just show your best work because, again, it's a quality thing, not a quantity thing, and it's a higher level marketplace in terms of probably positions, business professionals, and C-level, and the fact that it's career. So all those things enter into it, I think. So like your profile, think about positioning, as in marketing, through your posts so that you convey a themed thread and that you invite folks closer to you in a way that they understand what you're up to. So a whole lot of folks these days are suggesting that you don't use your link in your initial post because you'll get more because the algorithm doesn't prefer that you're sending people off the LinkedIn platform. And this is the case with all the platforms. They want to keep people on their platform. So they want you to write a post that doesn't link. But if you're curating valuable information, you're usually sharing a link to something you're learning or reading or researching or listening to or watching. The same with if you want to share things that you create, because remember I told you, you share what you create, you share what you curate, and then you communicate. So if you're going to share what you create and what you curate, you need to give that link, in my opinion. Also, I think it's about user experience and not what LinkedIn prefers. So for my user experience, people don't like to have to search for the link, I don't think. I think they like to click on the initial post or the visual that takes them directly to what you're trying to share. And so I think from a user experience, having the link below is actually less easy. And another thing that was a problem is that if they suggested that you put the link in the first comment, which now you can pin the first comment. That's fairly new on LinkedIn. You can pin a comment. Before you couldn't do that. And so a lot of times people were putting that link in that first comment and then it was getting moved down the feed till you couldn't find it or see it. So it's interesting because wanting people to follow a link because you want to bring people back to your real estate, to your property, to your home. You want to invite them to your home, not to the LinkedIn home. To do so, you want them to follow a link. So when the link gets buried in the thread or it's not easy from a user experience perspective or user interface, UX, UI, whatever, then I think you're doing a disservice sometimes if you play games to trick the algorithm or game the algorithm. To me, I'd rather serve people than try to game the algorithm at LinkedIn for more views. So I guess I made the decision that I'm not putting my link generally in the first comment, but this is a technique that many people do. I'm sharing it with you, your call. Some people do claim that they tested this and it did a lot better when they did this. I did test this for a few weeks just to see how I felt it would work or not work for me. I don't think it made a difference. It didn't seem to help, that's for sure. And if it's not helping, why would I go through this extra rigmarole? If you're about tricking the algorithm for more views, I'm not sure if I subscribe to that thinking. However, you always do want to do the best that you can, knowing that's the whole reason I'm giving you some of the data and facts, because if we can learn, like, how many hashtags, do we need hashtags? Things work on different platforms. The more we know about that, the better we can work with it. But I don't think it's about tricking it or manipulating it, or I don't know what the word is. Like I said, I don't want you to play these algorithms. Just like Eddie explained on Facebook, the algorithm is not against you. So think about that. And again, I'm worried more about the user experience. So I think if you give less of an intro, so sorry, LinkedIn, I'm not keeping you there to read, but if you give less of an intro, but make it exciting and inviting, then you gain the click. And that's really what you're after, even if LinkedIn and all the platforms, rather, you keep people there. That's not really in your best interest. That's in the platform's best interest. So think about that, use it how you feel, but I know how I do it, and I don't always follow the orders, I guess. But I think if you give a good intro, the click will work. If you have a visual that takes you straight to the content, I think it's easier. Another thing that people do to try to increase engagement is to try to ask questions or run polls to engage people on LinkedIn. And if your posts get reactions, then it gets seen by more people. And that's why people want to use these things. I think you have to use them with strategy, with some strategic thinking behind them. I think you should use them sparingly so that they don't get old with people. I think that you should consider how much of a following and how engaged of an audience that you have before you even start jumping into those. Because if you have a poll and no one's answering, it doesn't only not give you any information that's helpful, or it gives you such a small pool of information that it's not helpful. And it also, again, I think takes away from your social game. If you're all business and you need new clients, LinkedIn may be useful for you. If you do business with businesses, B2B, it may do good for you. You will need some nurturing and some thoughtful planning, of course, and I'll tell you more. So let me tell you a little bit about some of this research that I found from this gentleman named Richard Vanderbloem. Richard Vanderbloem, Richard Vanderbloem. I hope I'm not saying your name wrong, Richard Vanderbloem. Anyway, he's a LinkedIn training guy. He did a study, which again gave me a lot of insight that surprised me and may surprise you. It's a little different than what you may have heard. So the analysis is from 10,000 posts over 4 months. So it's an analysis that's pretty deep. It has a pretty good field, pretty good depth. It does say that over those 4 months, and this was towards the end of last year, that the LinkedIn reach for everybody was going down. And I mean for everybody. It said for 99.9% of all users, reach was going down. And LinkedIn's a weird ducky for me because at first I was getting like nothing. Then I was getting like real big engagement, real big reach, real big impressions. And now I'm back to like, I don't know, crickets. I don't know why that is because it seems like it should be going up as part of the creator community and what have you. But I noticed for my own LinkedIn, it's a little wonky lately. And for some of my clients, I think it's even off there too, which is unusual because they aren't allowed to go down. So I am really excited to show you some of what I learned from Richard's statistics. He did this through a fairly large field. So when you have a good field for your study, that's always a good thing. The other thing I like about it, which is something I mentioned to you last week in the Twitter episode, was that you have to be careful with stats. But what really resonates with me when it comes to social media stats is, for example, some of what Agorapulse says, where they're looking at real actual usage stats. They're looking at the stats that people are giving them by using their social media sharing platform. So it's not people saying, oh, I share the most on LinkedIn. It's their stats showing where they actually shared the most and placed the most content. And what's funny is a lot of times what people think and what's actually happening, what they're doing, what they're using, and what's performing don't match up. And so that's why it's good for us to try to be ultra critical in, trying to figure out what stats are really pertinent to help us figure out what we need to know to work with the platform. Now, again, I want to stress that learning about how the algorithm works, which I think is in part the goal, the target for why Richard did the study. I'm maybe putting words in his mouth, but it feels like in his analysis and results, he's explaining to you why these insights are applicable and how they're giving him insight into the algorithm. So again, I want to repeat, it's not about tricking or manipulating the algorithm, but it's learning to use the algorithm to your best benefit. Again, ignoring it completely at the stake of serving your audience first, of course. Okay, so this is Richard. Hello, Richard. And this is from the Social Pulse community. So this is a private community, but I just wanted to show you and give credit to the person, Richard van der Blom, who came up with the insights here that we're going to look at. And I love that what he does is he takes the whole study that he did, but he really tries to knock it down into what are the most applicable things that we as creators want to know, as we as social media managers want to know, as we as content marketers want to know. How can we best work with, and what can we learn from this study? And I think you're going to find he has some interesting things to say about it. So I'm actually going to refer to his LinkedIn profile, and I'm going to take a look at some of the things he talks about. Now, we know that we want to make it personal, but what I want to know is, how do we make these carousels for LinkedIn? And I'm going to give you a link with a how-to article for creating carousels to put on your LinkedIn pages to, tell a story or give vital information or announce an event, or there's so many things you can do with it. In fact, I think I have another article I could give you with a link that gives you some examples of using the LinkedIn I guess it's a slide carousel. But the reason this matters, because this is given higher priority for sharing. It picks up algorithm juice that we're after. So that's one of the things that we're going to want to show you, or you may want to think about using. I know I'm really interested because I like creating presentations and visuals. And so I think if I could create some LinkedIn posts that have this component, I think it could be very effective. And I think it could be effective for you and for clients who are trying to make some impact. And because the study that Richard did shows that these carousels that he's using to show his data are also getting preference as a LinkedIn type of content that the algorithm likes and will make more visible. I think I already mentioned that LinkedIn, it's not quantity, it's quality over quantity. And that's one of the things that Richard also found. But the interesting thing is that he found there's also some other correlations about posting on LinkedIn concerning time. So LinkedIn, according to his study, prefers if you stick around when you post a piece of content, because it's going to give more algo juice to something that gets engagement early on, which is interesting. He also says that he found that LinkedIn will boost your content after 2 hours and again after 8 hours, which I did not know. I didn't know that if you post within 18 hours from your last post, it will cannibalize your average reach per post. So don't post within 18 hours of a previous post. Did you know you should have an 18-hour window on LinkedIn? According to his study, that's something that can be a deterrent with the algorithm. As I mentioned, he said that they give preference and better results if you respond to all the comments in the first 12 hours. So that's interesting. He says that LinkedIn loves that interaction between you, the author, and your audience. So replying to people is huge. And I notice a lot of people don't ever reply. I always reply, so I don't get it. But apparently that's something that LinkedIn is going to love. Probably most platforms love, because that's giving that post interaction, which always the algo likes. The ideal post length, he said, should be roughly 15 or 20 lines, according to this. I think that seems like a lot, but he said, you have to keep your audience engaged or reading it. Again, I think this is something that LinkedIn values. It may not serve my purpose. He's saying don't drop it into your feed and leave. Again, this is referring to LinkedIn giving you cred or value with your time and input spent nurturing it. So to get more eyes on your content, he says, engage with it with at least 3 or 4 posts directly after you published yours. So when you publish your post, to get more eyes on your post, you should stick around LinkedIn and comment on other people's posts. And that will help your new post, which is very interesting and unusual new advice from my perspective. The creator mode, as I did probably mention, has been said to be something that will help you grow with your followers and therefore reach. But it says in the creator mode, you really need to do 2 to 3 times a week of posting and make sure that your content is relevant and resonates with your audience. And that is huge. And that, of course, applies to any and everything on social, really. But it's interesting. Also, he said you may or may not need a LinkedIn newsletter, even though that's one of the benefits to creator mode, which is also interesting. But he's again promoting these slide decks as something that will get more algorithm love. And so he's saying, hey, don't do a newsletter, put your info into some kind of a slide deck and, still share it out, but do it that way because you'll get more instant reach, according to Richard. And different formats will give you different results. He's saying the favorites of LinkedIn for that algorithm are just what we've been talking about, those slide decks, which are essentially a PDF, the way that they are set up to do. So even if you make a slide deck from a slide software, like a PowerPoint or Canva or whatever, Google Slides, whatever it is, you will use it as a PDF to place it up into here, according to Richard. And I think that's also, you'll see the directions in the link. So video content is great on LinkedIn, but probably they would rather you do that video content, like all channels, direct to their platform and not through a link to YouTube. But if, again, you may have a different need or strategy. If you're trying to drive traffic to your YouTube channel, if you're trying to get new subscribers, you would rather use that link and try to pull people back to your YouTube channel and to subscribe to you rather than hanging out longer on LinkedIn. So there's a little bit of a push and pull what the platform wants and what the creator wants and needs, but we should make the best of what we can learn and, leverage what we can learn from this and try to use it as best we can. Polls are another thing that is mentioned as a favorite by the LinkedIn algorithm. I don't want you to poll people to death, though, and you can't do polls effectively if you don't have a large enough following, because you're not getting enough of a basis for a real study. So you got to be careful that you don't base your information on an unfair size of the informational poll. Anyway, you know what I mean. Multiple picture posts LinkedIn liked. Who knew? Let's try doing some multiple picture posts. That's something I haven't really done much with. Who knew? That could be something that LinkedIn likes. Of course, it doesn't want to give you post with your external links. It wants to keep you on the platform. Again, won't matter. It's not what I'm about. It's not helping my audience to just let them hang on LinkedIn. If I want to share something I'm reading that will enlighten them on a topic that we both share and love, I'm trying to give my audience what content that's beneficial to them. I'm not worrying so much about LinkedIn liking what I'm sharing. I'm worried about the people that I'm trying to reach liking what I'm sharing. However, again, you'd be awful silly if you didn't try to learn what you can and use it to your advantage. Here's an interesting thing. It doesn't like you to post articles. Some people love to post an article, even a blog post, as their LinkedIn post. Guess what? Less reach by the algo gods of LinkedIn. So a lot of people like to put their celebratory and occasion information up there. It doesn't even matter if it's a professional award. If you do a celebrate or an occasion type post, LinkedIn gives that less juice. Odd, you'd think good news might get some, but we should know People don't want to hear good news, they want to hear the bad news. Even though people use hashtags between 1 and 10, it doesn't make a difference. He's advising 3 to 5. He's also saying that there's a negative connotation if you use too many, and the same negative connotation if you use none. So sticking in that 3 to 5 range is probably keeping you safe in the positive, not in the negative, and you're not overworking it, which if people are doing up to 10 hashtags in LinkedIn, they're probably overworking it. What else is interesting about that is you don't really hear people talking about hashtags in LinkedIn too often. So using our hashtags is about reach. And another thing that you might be surprised is that there is a negative engagement facet to the algorithm, where if people unfollow you or remove you as a connection, or they remove themselves from being mentioned in your post or something like that, that can stop the acceleration of that post or the growth of that post completely. It can like stomp it down. But what I worry about is does that mean that people who talk about hot topics or contentious issues that probably do need to be discussed are then tapped down because there's haters or whatever? I worry that negative engagement taps down the voices of people trying to talk about maybe important, hard to talk about topics. So that's interesting to know that they do have a negative engagement policy, or it seems so from Richard's study about the LinkedIn algorithm. Of course, every channel wants you to do their thing. Again, you have to think about your strategy. If you're trying to drive people to your YouTube channel to get subscribers, you may not want to leave them with your stuff direct to a platform. So again, it's strategy, it's management, it's a decision. Also, have you ever heard of the social selling index? So LinkedIn rewards members with a SSI, or a social selling index score, of 70 and gives them more reach. Now let's take a look at my social selling index, which I had no idea I had. So I need a 70, and it looks like my overall score here is a 41, so far away from what they would like. Now, I do have a 17% industry, in my industry, SSI rank, which what that means is that if you look below, it'll tell you about people in your industry. So sales professionals in the writing and editing industry, which is my main jam, my superpower, writing, average an SSI of 27, and I rank in the top 17%, even though I was higher last week, it says, although I thought when I checked it last week, it was 17%, but I guess that's higher than my industry average. I have a 41 out of 100 as my overall score, but I have a network SSI of 59%. Again, that doesn't seem very high. What they're saying the people in my network have is an SSI of 43, and that I'm in the 59 percentile in my network. So I'm lacking there. I'm also lacking here. But what makes up the current social selling index? Well, it's 4 components, and the first one is establishing your professional brand. That's where I score the highest, so I like that. That's a good thing to score high in, that I am actually establishing a professional brand on LinkedIn. That's my high score. I don't have a very high score for finding the right people. I could attest to that. I don't really do the outreach finding people that much. I really run sort of an inbound marketing system. So I don't go after people. They usually kind of come to me. That could enter into why I'm low there. I'm not sure. And I'm not sure how they score this stuff. I'm not sure what the criteria is. They will give you little boxes to explain it a little better, and they may or may not help. I'm just saying. And then my next highest score after my establishing my professional brand is that I engage with insights. And so that's where I score highest. That's another of the criteria. And finally, building relationships. And I score pretty low there as well, which is interesting because I'm really good at building relationships, but maybe I'm doing it on Twitter. I'm not sure, or elsewhere. Interesting. And Facebook. But again, I'm not exactly sure. We could find out more. We should probably look into this more and understand what it is, or if there is any information here that I can use that really can build me in my industry, in my profession, or if this doesn't really apply. I guess it depends. It's just something I had never heard of. Have you? And go ahead and check it. I'll give you the link. It's linkedin.com/sales/SSI, and it should give you your own SSI score. So I find that very interesting. This piece of information kind of really surprised me. It is that the first action of engagement counts. So this is kind of a weird note to self and to each other, but you might not know this, and this is really weird, but if you first like and then you do a comment, it will kill the positive impact on the algorithm that the comment normally has. So what he's suggesting is that you don't like a piece of work before you comment, or particularly if you're going to comment, because then you hurt the algorithm, giving that content creator credit for the comment, which is really a weird insight, really an interesting insight, and one you might want to know. So you don't want to first like and then comment. You want to comment before you do another action. It's commenting that gets the algo. Also, he says the first 90 minutes is where the magic happens. He says that LinkedIn analyzes all posts, and they'll share yours with your frequent readers and your inner circle, your highly engaged followers, and make sure that, though, you get them to engage in the first 90 minutes, because doing so will skyrocket your reach. So what he suggests is that you kind of stick around and keep an eye on your posts and make sure that if you have commenters, you reply to, again, bump it again, and to keep that first 90-minute high awareness by LinkedIn happening. And, that way you might even be able to bump up the reach. Actually, very surprising. I've never heard any recommendation to stick around for a certain time to help bump up that work. And he says, don't be the first one to comment on your post, which is also interesting, since they're telling you to put a comment with your other people that you want to tag. They're telling you to put a comment with your link, etc. And he's saying here that don't be the first to comment on your own post. That's a negative for the algorithm and gives you actually a penalty in reach. Also, don't edit a typo in the first 10 minutes after publishing. It gives you a penalty in reach. What? So I'm an edit not, I can't stand having a typo. So I don't know if I could wait 10 minutes. What that tells me is I better edit my edit and editing before I push publish, because if you mess with it and have to edit it because you're going crazy and need an edit, and you do it within the first 10 minutes, you just hurt your own post. Again, new information. I've never heard of such a thing. Also, he's saying be creative with your external links, because you do want to drive traffic from LinkedIn to your website. Okay, so here's the deal. So he's saying be creative in how you put those external links in. I already mentioned to you people using it as a pinned thing so they don't put the link in the thing to trick the algo. Guess what? The algo's onto you. For one thing, he's saying don't put a link in the comments until that 10-minute mark has passed, because if you're the first to comment and you're putting a link back to your thing, they're noticing, they'll give you a 10% penalty, just the same as if you edit your post to add it in. But if you wait 10 minutes, you can go ahead and add the link into the comments or add the link into the post without suffering the penalty, which is interesting. And he's saying, or you can go ahead and be brave and include it in the original post, but keep an eye on other things that make for better ingredients on your post. So that important CTA that you have on it, the ability to attract attention through your visual and through your headline, having something very thought-provoking to share and say in the copy that you give. These are things that may outweigh that you use that link. And it's interesting, though, that there are these workarounds and this information actually stating that the algo penalizes in this way, but not in that way. So might be good information. And if you take a break and you don't post for 4 weeks, your next 4 to 5 posts will have 35% less reach. So don't take a break for 4 weeks. Try not to take a break. Schedule it on a scheduler. If you're going away, go ahead and pre-schedule social posts so that you keep your social traction going. That's my recommendation. And of course, I love Agorapulse if you need a content scheduling tool. So also, he said the Tag Mafia is a penalty. So if you tag people for the wrong reasons and they don't engage, that's actually a penalty. So if you tag yourself in a post, there's no benefit to it. And he's saying it's better to tag people in the comments. I guess people tag people for the wrong reasons, like they just tag everybody they know to get attention to their new piece of content. And we already know without him telling us that that's not really the way to go ever. So we don't need that advice from this data, but a reminder. So those are some interesting tidbits, don't you think? Engaging company pages, he says, perform 3 times better than those who only publish, meaning that two-way conversation, that engagement is everything. And remember, some formats outperform others. Remember that you can impact the algorithm by building that social selling index, which we might have to investigate and what all it means and how you can increase it. Repost and shares not only bring you additional audience to your posts, but they actually also add algorithm juice. Here's a really interesting fact for you. Only 5.2% of all members are publishing content on LinkedIn out of all the people who are on the platform. Now, as a creator, that makes you in a very small group. As a creator, that means that there's a possibility of a lot of viewership and reach who are not your content creating peers. So you're being seen by people who essentially aren't competing with you as content creators. So very interesting stuff from our friend who shared his LinkedIn savvy with Agorapulse, who shared it with me, who shared it with you, because that's how the internet world goes round. Everybody shares each other's stuff, and you become, you rise, you help other people rise, and in doing so, you happen to rise. It's kind of an interesting thing. It's one of the things I love about social. If you notice on my shows and on all my content, I'm always talking about things I learn from a million different people. And I'm always learning from a million different people, looking for new people to learn from, and then trying to share it with you. So there's a lot going on that you can really learn and do and find through expanding your reach on social. And I do, as I said, attribute my digital business to my social media marketing efforts. It's really where I attract and talk to and get to know and understand clients and work with people and collaborate with people. And there's just so much. So I suggest that you, as part of everything you're doing with your social channels, remember that being a real human, showing up as a real human, interacting with people, connecting with people, that's where you make the real magic in establishing yourself as a business owner and a brand, and bringing people who want to work with you. Okay, lots of stuff. I hope I can edit that down to something usable. Thanks for watching The Marketing Mirror. I'm Sue Ann with Right Mix for Business, and I'm so glad you're here today. I hope you found some new and exciting tips for leveraging LinkedIn and lighting it up. Thank you.